Good afternoon, everyone, here from AMTC. Good afternoon or good morning for those of you who join us from Europe, Germany, or somewhere else. As you can all see, this is a very different edition of this year's ITAB, the third edition of ITAB with over 7,000 registered participants, some of whom are joining us here today at the AMTC Center. So again, a very warm welcome from all of you. My name is Markus Wächter, and I'm leading a short panel discussion for the next around 34 minutes. With me, I have three very interesting and diverse guests. So on the right, Ben Yang from TÜV Süd, Chevy from Ultimaker, and Guy from Yorg Fisher or GF. So as you can see, a very diverse group. So there are two German entities, me representing a German university, Ben Yang representing TÜV Süd, Chevy representing a Dutch company, Ultimaker, Guy representing a Swiss-based company. So maybe as a short start, I might just ask my three co-panelists to say a few words first. Ben Yang.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Ben Yang. I'm from TÜV Süd. Thanks, Benjamin and the Siemens AMTC for having us here. TÜV Süd is a testing and certification organization. Our role in the economy and in industry is to provide trust between the manufacturers as well as the customers. And we do so by independent assessments of the products or the systems. So we'll talk more about how we do that later on.
Okay, maybe Chevy, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Chevy Koch from Ultimaker. So Ultimaker, we are a professional desktop 3D printing manufacturer. So we are based in the Netherlands. Yeah, so I think I want to thank ITAB and AMTC for organizing something like that. Yeah, so it is really a good platform for us to do some cost sharing, okay, to see how we can promote industrial transformation, even in this country and also in the region as well. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Guy.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Guy. I'm from Yorg Fisher. We're a Swiss multinational, basically well-established and known for our precision engineering, industrial automation. We have been in existence for, I think, over 200 years now. Some of you know us by the brands that we carry, such as Micron, high-speed milling, such as Aji Sharmi, System 3R, and so on. We're looking to provide a little bit of interesting and a bit different perspective into the transformation topic today.
Okay, thank you guys. So of course, also a reminder to all of you who join us online and also those who are here, please also feel free to post questions, which I might see here on my little tablet here. So we just start with a short discussion, and for all of you, even if I post the questions to one of you guys, if the other two have anything to share, please. So maybe I start with TÜV Süd first. As we understand, TÜV Süd is in a testing and certifying company. So where do you see key competencies when you have to certify and test emerging technologies like AM, for example?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the testing and certification companies like us, TÜV Süd, and many of our colleagues are actually disrupted by a lot of these emerging technologies. How we actually certify systems or organizations has always been looking at the people, the processes, the policies, and the same thing goes for us actually. We all start with the people. First of all, we got to have the people who have been there, done that, who are the experts in their field, and they have to know what could go wrong, and what are the safety issues, what are the security issues, what are the shortcuts that the industry has been using, and we kind of have to be at the forefront of this in order for us to kind of put on our safety lenses and kind of look at the processes. So the number one things that for us to do to close the gaps is always to go into getting the right people, training our people, and even we have to get a lot of experienced people from the industry, and we will be able to kind of impart the testing philosophy for them and kind of move them from the industry experts to someone who is an expert, plus in addition, keeping an eye for details for all the safety, security issues. Yeah.
Okay, so if I translate it also, this is also a bit about a certain gap in competencies, right? That you at TÜV then somehow have to close. So how do you do this? Mainly by training, or?
Nothing beats really going to the client. We already have a group of experts who are experts in testing certifications. So whenever we have people joining us from the industry, I think that is where the real communication and exchange comes in. And amazing things happens whenever we work on projects. We have all the right people sitting in a room. So you can imagine us in a room, we have all the experts circling around a product and kind of making a risk assessments, debating. And with experts, you always have debates. And experts can never agree with each other. And that is where the fun begins. You debate over it, and then you really get out a solution. The fundamental things, hygiene factor for us is always safety. And of course, beyond safety, how do you optimize the productivity? Yeah, that's usually how we close the gap. There's no school to go to, but mutual discussions in a very respectful way is probably the best.
Okay, thanks, Peng-Yang. Okay, since we're both company-wise originating from Munich, so I think we go up like to our more northern Western partner, which will be the Netherlands. So let me go to Chevy first. Maybe, okay, my question is a bit lengthier. So I want to ask, maybe you can share with us like one success story of one of the customers that you have, and maybe also like the role that Ultimaker was playing. Like how do you, for example, support the customer to adopt AM technology? And also what do you see is the customer now doing differently than before?
Okay, I think that's a very interesting question. Yeah, so like my colleague from Tusut, Peng-Yang said, yeah, this is emerging. Yeah, so there's a lot of changes taking place. So at Ultimaker, we are also learning by doing. Yeah, so I think one good case study I can think of is Heineken. So I guess everyone knows Heineken, right? The beer company. Yeah. So for Heineken, they started to adopt 3D printing, yeah, as a tool for operational efficiency. Yeah. So along the way, they came to realize that this tool is a tool that they can use to maintain the uptime of the production lines. Yeah. So how did we start off, with Heineken? So, towards the end of last year at Ultimaker, we ran this survey. It's called the 3D Printing Sentiment Index. So we came to realize that there are a couple of hurdles that actually stop industries from massively adopting 3D printing. Yeah, so some of them includes a lack of knowledge. So as we speak to customers, they told us, hey, you know what? I do not know how to identify applications for 3D printing. I do not know much about materials, so I do not know how to choose the right materials for the applications I've chosen. And thirdly, I do not have the relevant design skills, whether is it 3D design skills or is it designed for additive manufacturing. Yeah. So it is along that backdrop that we curated a very unique program for Heineken. Yeah. So what we did was, we have a blended learning process, including classroom training. Okay, talking about what are the materials available, yeah, how do you design for 3D printing, how do you identify the right applications, how do you build a business case for the applications. Yeah, so that is phase one. So after that, what we had to do was we had an on-site site walk in their factories. So if you think about it, it's like a Kaizen process, right? We walk through the factory lines, identify the applications. So the factory line, oh, this can be done, oh, that can be done. Then after that, we had to shortlist what were the high-value applications to focus on. Yeah. Okay. So that was the process. Okay. But after identification, it's not done. Okay. Because after that, we have to do like a hand-holding session, more of a consulting process on developing these applications. Yeah. So this may seem like a lengthy process, okay, but we realized that it is something very important that we have to go through. Yeah. So the results from it also blew us away as well. Okay. Because from there, a single site in the brewery can actually save up to 6 digits worth of savings per location. Yeah, so it became so successful that they have decided to scale this up massively. So right now, globally, we have 20 over locations with Heineken that is adopting 3D printing in a very, very big way. Yeah. So I know there was a question asking about, after this whole process, were there any changes in the way they approach 3D printing, right? Yeah. So, traditionally in the manufacturing world, we have people working in very specialized jobs. If you are a maintenance operator, you are very specialized in that role. If you are a designer, you are very specialized in that role. Okay, but we came to realize that 3D printing is something that is very cross-functional. We are starting to see different departments working together. And for certain cases, we see certain roles being expanded as well. Yeah, so we see the maintenance guy suddenly saying, hey, why don't I try my hand at 3D design? Yeah, so it blew our minds away because traditionally we always think that, oh, they are very used to outsourcing. and maybe we'll leave it be. Yeah, but then they started to say, hey, why don't I try designing something? I design a spare part and use it on the machines. So we do see an expanded role. And on the management side of things, okay, we also started to see new positions being created in different companies. We see roles like digital transformation managers. We see a role like innovation manager or additive managers. Yeah. So for these managers, the kind of roles that they have is very unique. Yeah, because traditional managers is all about managing a team, meeting the KPIs, right? Okay, but this kind of manager is about connecting different departments together. Yeah. So they are like the AM champion in the company, first driving the technology, but connecting the groups together to make it happen. Yeah. So these are just some of the observations that we see.
Very interesting. Maybe one small minor question. So how long did this process with this one plant with Heineken last, or how long did it take you to go through that?
Oh, it's not a long process. I mean, let's say a training with a sidewalk, just 2 days. Yeah, but the development probably between 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a very short time spent. Okay, but they find a significant amount of savings.
Yeah, no, it's not too long, because I think that's also the kind of like what many people think, hey, it costs me a lot of money and it takes like forever before I see any impact. And this is like a very good example of like show the opposite. Yeah. Okay, like now maybe let me switch to our Swiss friends. So as I understand, I mean, GF or Yorg Fisher, how we might call it, is more like a traditionally conventional company, like you do a lot of like casting, machine divisions. So how did the transition start? That you also then started to adopt new technologies like AM? And I guess, for example, what were some of the barriers that the company faced, and how were you able to like overcome these problems to like implement this?
Okay, very good question. I think if I look back, we probably started, let's say 6, 7 years ago, when we understood that additive is going to be a key element in the factory of the future. And being a world-leading provider of, as you correctly indicated, what is now known as traditional technologies, milling, EDMs, industrial automation, we understood that we need to be a player in this fantastic industry as well. From there, the road to our 2020 back then strategy was very, very short. And today, you actually see the 3 divisions that comprise Yorg Fisher, namely GF Piping Systems, GF Casting Solutions, and GF Machining Solutions, each and every one of them deep in additive. So for example, GF Piping is using multiple additive technologies in order to create not only the prototypes, but mainly the molds with which they produce the piping, the fitting, and so on. GF Casting Solutions that traditionally manufacture a lot of casted parts using foundries around the world got into additive because they understood that many of their existing aerospace, automotive, and so on customers are getting very deeply into additive, and they forecasted that in the future, many of the clients will basically shift and they need to follow. So today, GF Casting operates one of the, I would say, leading service facilities in Stabio, the southern part of Switzerland. It's called a motion center. And in a motion center, you can find advanced application development alongside the guys that are running the foundry. So they are transitioning basically their know-how in traditional technology into extensive know-how in additive, and being a fully NADCAP certified institution, they develop additive applications and parts for their existing customers. So they're basically following what the customers are doing and learning together with them. GF Machining Solutions chose a different path. We teamed up 2 years ago with 3D Systems, and in order to shorten our learning curve, basically created a joint venture according to which we are developing and producing what we call integrated manufacturing solutions based on 3D printing technology. Now, in terms of barriers, well, Chevy mentioned quite a few. from Heineken. And of course, we all know that there are plenty in the industry, and I would not bore you with the trivial ones going into the material availability, platform size, costing, return on investment, and so on. One of the things that we probably found as a main pain point is the fact that the industry is predominantly focused on the box, as we call it, on the additive machine, on the technology, on the capability, on the features, while in actual fact, it's the translation of the chicken to duck language, as we call it. It's the transitioning from additive downstream. It's the transition of additive into manufacturing, which is the holy grail. It's all of that that creates a massive issue because in actual fact, most of the suppliers today cannot advise anyone about it. When it comes to post-processing, when it comes to, I would say, industrial automation and manufacturing, pure manufacturing. It's very difficult to get some answers and people kind of do their own way. And we understood that we need to develop sort of a process, an integrated process in order to take customers really from zero to hero, from art to part, from the design through the redesign, also all through the printing, optimization, simulation, all the way down to getting their final part after it's been heat treated, sandblasted, milled, whatever the case may be, give them some sort of a plug and play. So if you want, we're looking at more of a system integrator, industrial automation being gelled into the additive process as such.
Okay, very interesting. Maybe I just add like a second question for you right away, because what I can sense then also one of the key problems that probably you have to face is how do you bring your workforce with you to the next step? So if we talk about like training and development, learning and development, I mean, how did GF implement this or successfully do this?
Well, it's a lot of work, and being a big multinational, it's obviously always work in progress. What we chose to do is, on the one hand, of course, try and get teams, just like I believe Chevy also mentioned, integrated team working together. So for example, and I'll take GF Casting for a moment, when they created a motion center, they had all the relevant know-how about casting, about all sorts of different parts that they're making and about the post-processes that are required, but they needed the additive experts. So they brought in additive experts and they put these guys in teams to collaborate, to work together, to give the feedback on what's possible, what's not, and why. They were looking not from the technology point of view, not from necessarily the productability of the part, but more from the value created. Because in manufacturing, most of the time, we're looking at parameters that are, I would say, almost foreign to the world where additive originated from, where the world of product development, R&D, product design. So when these guys that were coming from casting point of view, we're talking about overall equipment effectiveness, we're talking about cost per parts, we're talking about cost efficiency, productivity, all of these parameters gradually became more understood by the additive people, and they started delivering on those key parameters. So there was kind of a synergy between experts on one side, experts on the other side, trying to create a common lingo in order to create a part that resonates with the customer in terms of the value that additive brings, be it lightweighting, being consolidation of parts and so on, as well as its manufacturability is reasonable, making sense, cost-wise, repeatability, okay, the ability to certify such part and so on. All of that became, I would say, one once these integrated teams sat together.
Okay, interesting. See, at the last one, we also like indirectly heard TÜV Süd again when we talk about certifying certain parts. Maybe like I switch a bit to like make it a bit like more interactive. Maybe a question to like all three of you as a change. So since we all like, we all see, we are looking differently, I could have like just skipped my shaving before the event because it anyway doesn't matter. So how do you think the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, which will most likely still stay with us for many more months, actually provide an impetus for companies to even accelerate their business transformation plans even more? So who wants to, Peng Yang, you want to start?
Yeah, I could start first. I think one of the key things that organizations have is whether they have the right leadership that believes in emerging technologies, whether the emerging technologies could help them, pass over this COVID period stronger. We talked to a lot of small and medium enterprises. We talked to a lot of companies. We believe that most leaderships understood the value of going to Industry 4.0. However, I think during this COVID period, the pressing issues for everyone is really survival. What could happen after this, we really do not know. It's evolving. But I guess what we highly recommend to do is to get yourself trained up. If you think that a technology like robotics or even additive manufacturing is the right way to go, you do not have to overly invest in capital investment. There are facilities like the AMTC, like service bureaus that you can start small. And you really realize a lot of things after you get into a project. You realize that all the benefits, some may apply to you, some may not apply to you. I think what is valued to you may not be a value to other people. So what does value means to us as an organization that's coming out from COVID? If I'm an SME, may be very different from an MNC.
True.
So I guess starting small is certainly useful. And of course, if you go for trainings, it will be useful, but nothing beats really getting onto a small projects, and then you will discover many things.
Okay.
So I guess that is, from my point of view, I can leave the time for Chevy and Guy.
Yeah, so for me, I think COVID doesn't only impact the individual, it impacted a lot of businesses. So I'm speaking on behalf of the manufacturing community, because I think in the early days of January, February, when China decided to close borders, many manufacturers started to face a lot of shortages. Yeah, because we were so used to outsourcing, right? Yeah, so it was during this period that we've realized actually COVID was the main driver in a digital transformation. Yeah, we started to see companies starting to invest in technology, companies starting to change their strategy from outsourcing to insourcing. Yeah, so that was when we see a lot of companies started to get some 3D printers, in a way to explore, how they can take a certain percentage of their replacement tools and produce them with additive manufacturing. Yeah, so this is really something that we see already taking place. Yeah, but moving forward, how I see COVID changing businesses is I think there will be an accelerated adoption of digital transformation. Yeah, because right now in this climate, it's so uncertain. It's all about agility, it's all about flexibility, right? So whoever can make the best decision quickest will be the winner in the market. Yeah. So unfortunately, I think some companies who are not able to transform quick enough, we do see some companies sliding downwards, and to a certain extent, some has closed as well. Yeah. So this is something very, very real. Yeah. Okay. So I think I want to share one quick story, to share with you how a certain company has actually changed their line to be more flexible. Yeah, just because during this season, right? Okay, so there's this company called Schubert. Yeah. So what they have done is they produce packaging machines. Yeah. Okay. So traditionally, as they serve their customers, they used to manufacture the parts and then they send over to the customers. Yeah. So the whole process is very long. Imagine if I'm a customer, I want to change my production line. It takes about typically 3 months. Okay. So what they have done is they've gone purely digital. Okay. They have this thing called a digital warehouse. Yeah. And they ship a 3D printer to a customer as well. Okay. So as and when I have a new product that I need to pack, okay, instead of having to wait 3 months, they will go to the digital warehouse, they download the correct parts, get it printed, fit it onto the machine, and voila, you get a new production line. Yeah, so this is really what we're talking about. Digitalization is something that will not only bring you increased productivity, but also a lot of flexibility as well. Because we see the world probably moving from mass production to a more high mix, low volume kind of production moving forward. Yeah, so that's for me.
Bye.
I doubt if there is a lot left, after the fantastic answers. If possible, I'll relate to what Chevy mentioned, because and I'll build it in 2 levels. We see, obviously, an impact on the global scale, and we see an impact on GF, on ourselves as well. I'll start with the globe and drill deeper. Before the pandemic, we all know that we were, I think, in a kind of a global slowdown. And obviously, the pandemic basically deepened it. As Chevy mentioned, we are not sure, where this will end, but we know that it's accelerating certain processes that are already in place. For us as a leader in automation, we see that there's higher demand, for automating, manufacturing and production. And this is also a key element in the additive world today. People understand that additive manufacturing is very labor intensive, it's very manual. And when we look at, again, the holy grail, looking at making additive as a manufacturing tool, we need to get into some automation. Now, without getting too specific into internal and external and all of that, alongside the seek or the quest for automation, there is a very clear additional trend, which is the digitization. Part of our product portfolio also include digital and Industry 4.0 solutions, and we see customers looking for that as well. Solutions such as those allowing them to be in real-time contact with our customer support, with our application engineers, anywhere, anytime, any platform, secure connectivity, became extremely important. I think it's important also to realize that customers during these days, while we provide them technologies and at the same time they are in a way restricted because of the pandemic, they start looking in different directions because the mainstream doesn't work. One of the things we realized is that there is a lot of thought around what we call cost per created value. Traditionally, when customers would approach us, they show us a part and they expect to get, how can I make it faster, cheaper? Show me different technology between 3-axis to 5-axis and so on. Now they understand that things are not straightforward and they are looking at, you say additive, fantastic. In additive, I know there are certain values. In additive, I know that I can get lightweighting. I know that I can get, savings as far as cost, For example, inventory, for example, on things that has to do with, as I mentioned, part consolidation. But additive also offers me the traditional values. And traditional values are something I want to integrate together in order to create a new strategy, not just manufacturing cheaper, faster in order to create a better lead time, but to create something that on the whole makes more sense, as Chevy mentioned now, towards maybe a new segment or towards a new application. So customers seem to be a little bit more innovative these days, thinking a little bit outside the box because they're pressed against the wall. They need to survive. Their go-to market towards a particular segment is no longer effective, and they need to pivot.
Interesting. So I see we have a very lively and actually very interesting discussion. So we only have like 5 minutes left. We probably could easily add another 20, 30 minutes in discussions. Let me swap a bit, because there's one topic that I heard. Of course, it's also about changing mindsets, taking people along, educating and training people. So maybe I want to also phrase my question a bit different, since we have a very diverse group of speakers. Which role for example, could you play? Could you participate? Or also what would you for example, need in terms of support, help from education providers, so both sides. So maybe you start with Tiff Sud again.
I guess there is a need for the entire organization to come together. You're as strong as your weakest link. So the person from the CEO down to the front desk operator who's selling the digital service has to know what's going on. So we have to have different role-based trainings. We have to have a procurement person who knows how 3D printing cost comes about. We got to have a QA person who understands how the quality of 3D is. So I think there is different roles that specifically needs to be trained, and that would be how we can actually bridge from early adopters to early majority, because a lot of companies actually have not really moved from adopters to majority.
Sure.
And to close the chasm, I think we really have to, give them the tools to be trained.
Yeah. Okay, so from Ultimaker's standpoint, it is still overcoming the knowledge gap. Yeah. So I mean, a good thing why we are here in AMTC together with Siemens is because we really want to collaborate to take this learning solution that we have, and really use it to impact the local manufacturing community. I mean, not only in Singapore, but also in the Southeast, the ASEAN region as well. Yeah. So that is really the main objective. Okay. And in terms of training-wise, I think like what Guy mentioned earlier, it is not so much about a technology-centric kind of training. Yeah, it is more about talking about the processes. Yeah. Okay, how do we use additive to create value in our business, and how do we use additive to improve the workflow as well? Yeah. So this is really something that we need to think about. I guess probably in the future, we also require support from the IHLs, the universities, the polytechnics, the ITEs, yeah, to see how we can collaborate, to really make that transformation, to talk about application engineering. Yeah, how do you, choose materials? How do you design? Okay, so that it adds greater value to the business community.
Thank you very much. Maybe Guy for some closing words.
Well, I think the industry has scaled through the years, from what I've seen, and I've been in the industry for close to 15 years now, has scaled to work and dance very well with the academia. And a lot of brilliant ideas, a lot of fantastic technologies, applications have definitely sprung from the collaboration. I know that we've been, in Switzerland and in Europe, working with multiple universities and developing all sorts of capabilities. But going forward, what seems to be the barrier is to provide, I would say, a bit more boldness, a bit more sense of urgency. And this is something that can come probably more from the academia, because we are, as providers, as commercially driven, might be perceived as biased. But we also are the ones that see multiple industries, multiple players totally transforming, transitioning, gaining tremendous value, but not everybody is always willing to listen. So we believe that while academia is there to educate, is there to, of course, include additive as part of the curriculum, which is always important. And I personally feel the apprenticeship that is very, very common in Europe, the Berufsschule of Germany, that's the way forward. It's the theory and the hands-on. Together with that, academia needs to bring probably a bit more forward on these very successful cases, on these applications that actually work, so that nobody would have, oh yeah, I'm not too sure about this and I'm not too sure about that. Come see, experience. We are a government agency here for you. Something very similar, by the way, to what this AMTC is trying to do.
Excellent. I mean, Guy, thank you very much. This was, I think, the perfect ending already. So we have only 20 seconds left. So we saw like a very colorful, diverse panel of speakers that covered a lot of very interesting aspects of this. And with this, I think all is covered. What I also wanted to say is my final words. So thank you all again for joining, and take care and stay safe. Thank you very much.